Welcome to the CouchScouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the CouchScouts podcast, episode 44. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How's it going, man?
And Matt Jackson.
How's it going?
We are officially about a week away from the start of the NFL season. And tonight we're going to be doing a little 2-week series, kicking it off tonight, where we're going to be breaking down both the AFC this week and then the NFC next week, discussing which teams we're keeping an eye on, which players from that conference that we like at ADP, as well as some Super Bowl predictions at the end that we know we're going to be wrong about. So, just for fun. But tonight we're discussing the AFC. And before we jump into it, just wanted to take a quick second to let you guys know, if you've been listening, you know what I'm about to say. We are launching a website. It's coming September 5th. It's right around the corner. And we're really, really excited about it. We are excited to offer you guys more content and more tools, analysis, just things to help you dominate your fantasy league. So we're going to have an all-22 film room that is focused on underclassmen college players. So if you've been listening a while, you know that I help run the Dynasty Nerds film room, and they're really heavily focused on rookie content and rookie prospect cut-ups in their film room. Ours is going to be more on underclassmen, so you can start to get ahead in your scouting and even getting a feel for the strength of future draft classes coming into your dynasty roster. So yeah, we're going to have the film room. We're going to have extra podcasts. We're going to have our rookie guide, which I know a lot of you guys bought the rookie guide and we got really positive feedback on it and you guys loved using it. So that'll be included in some of our membership subscriptions, merch, a lot of different things. So we're trying to pack it out, make it bang for your buck. And that is launching September 5th. So keep your eye out. We're excited to drop that link and for you guys to be able to officially join as subs and get on our Scout Potato package or our Armchair GM package, or maybe the bundle and get both. But yeah, excited to have you guys join the community. So let's get into it. AFC preseason news. According to an anonymous NFL head coach, Aaron Rodgers looks old. Spoiler alert, he is old. Does he still have enough in the tank to make the Jets a legit contender? What do you guys think?
I think he's got all the arm talent still. You see all the highlights from training camp with him throwing bombs to Garrett Wilson. I'm not concerned at all about this quote unquote news.
I mean, I like how the guy came out and said that he looks old, right? I mean, he's like, what, 42, something like that? 30, 40, 41, 42. I mean, the dude is old by NFL standards, but he doesn't have to be the 26, 27, 30-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that team is so good, especially on the defensive end. If he can just go out and facilitate, distributing the ball around to his playmakers, I mean, they can be really, really solid contenders this year. So no, like Rupert said, I'm not concerned with that at all. Aaron Rodgers is still good enough to make the Jets an interesting team this year.
Yeah, I don't think we can really say one way or the other. I mean, what kind of precedent do we have for like 40-year-old quarterbacks coming off of Achilles tears this late in their career? And yeah, I mean, we haven't seen him play in over a year. So I think he probably still has some in the tank, but I don't think we can really say that. I don't think we really know. So I hope that he does, not because I have any special love for Aaron Rodgers, but Garrett Wilson has long been one of my favorite talents in the league. He was my number 2 player in that class. And I'm a big fan of Garrett Wilson. I think he really has a chance. I mean, he's a dark horse to finish as the wide receiver 1 now that he finally, hopefully, has competent quarterback play. But he does need Aaron Rodgers to still have some in the tank for that to happen. So that's my hope. I just want to finally see Garrett Wilson get some good quarterback play.
Are you sure you're saying that name right? Is it not Malachi Corley that you're talking about?
It's definitely not Malachi Corley that I'm talking about. Garrett Wilson. Remember the name. All right. Moving on here. Bo Nix has been named the starter in Denver. What are you guys' reactions to Bo Nix as the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos?
It's kind of funny because Rupert and I talked about this last week before he got named the starting quarterback, right? And we were like, if there's one quarterback in this rookie class that probably deserves to start, it's Bo Nix, right? Because as we said last week, he's not a rookie, right? I mean, the guy was a 5-year starter at the college level. He's coming in and is older and more experienced than some of the guys that have been starting for 1 or 2 years. I mean, that team doesn't have anybody that's going to challenge him. I mean, I haven't been a big Zach Wilson fan ever since he came out. I'm interested to see what they get from him because he's looked really good in the preseason. So I mean, not that I think the Broncos are going to do anything special this year, but it's definitely he's the most intriguing option I think that they have. So I mean, I like that they named him the starting quarterback because I think he's earned it.
Yeah, like what's their alternative? Jared Stidham, like not surprised by this news at all. You know, they pretty much already know what they have there, so might as well see what you got with your, top 15 pick and go from there and just let him grow throughout the year. Like we said, he's gotten 5 years of experience in college, so it's not like he only has like 12 starts to his name, like some players that come into the league, like Anthony Richardson, for example. So not surprised at all by this news.
Yeah, so when we posted the news in our Discord, my exact reaction, and I'm reading it, was makes sense. Dude is like 26 and Stidham sucks. LOL. If you're gonna take Bo Nix that high, then play him. Yeah. So that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I know he's not actually 26, but he's pretty old for a rookie. If you're gonna spend a top 12 pick on him, you start him over Jarrett Stidham. You just do. So I think this made sense. This seems like the right call. And, from a fantasy perspective, this means probably that Bo Nix is at least a low-end QB2. Like he's a guy that you can plug into your lineup and start, and he's going to get you some points probably. Even if he's not like a world-beating talent, he's a starting caliber NFL quarterback. So he's going to put up some fantasy points. So continuing on here, who is going to be the starter for New England week 1? May looked good in his preseason finale. Do you guys think that Jacoby Brissett holds on to the job, or are they going to roll May out there week 1?
Did I read it right that Jacoby Brissett got hurt or is dealing with an injury right now?
I think that's true.
That's what I remember reading that. So, I mean,
so they might not have a choice. Yeah, they might.
If that's the case, they might not have a choice. But
that would probably be one of those situations too. Like I think about Justin Herbert's rookie year, and I'm not saying that Drake May is Justin Herbert, but like when Tyrod Taylor got hurt and Justin Herbert got his shot, there was no taking it back, right? Yeah. And so I think once the cat's out of the bag and May is starting, I don't know that you can go back to Jacoby Brissett after that. So
I just think it's so weird. You just mentioned, right, just getting done talking about Bo Nix. If you're going to spend that high pick on somebody, you play them, right? I mean, the Patriots spent a top 5 pick on Drake May, and I would argue that playing him year 1 is not the right move. Right? I mean, you look at his fundamentals, his footwork, just some of the stuff that he just didn't do well on tape. Hopefully maybe he gets that cleaned up and it's not something that we can worry about. But I really, really thought he could have benefited from a year of just watching and learning the system. Doesn't look like he's going to get that option now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when I say if you're going to spend a top 5 pick, play him, I mean, when your alternative is Jarrett Stidham and the guy that you took is 25 years old. Like, I think May is a totally different situation because he's young. He's really, really young. I think Jacoby Brissett has been a proven starter, not a high-end starter, but he's started for multiple teams in the NFL and is fine as a bridge quarterback, especially if you're not going to compete. So I think those situations are totally different, and would have liked to have seen. I mean, I do think probably even day one, Drake May probably gives the Patriots a better chance to win than Jacoby
Oh, yeah,
Brissett does.
sure.
He's shown enough in the preseason that I feel like that's probably true. But I don't think the Patriots are really have much of a shot at competing for anything this year anyway. So I would have liked to have seen them give him some patience, some time to develop. But I mean, I guess we won't know if Brissett is hurt and it forces their hand, then we will never know if they would have started him had Brissett
I
been
mean,
healthy.
he has
or
looked good.
what.
He has looked good in the preseason too. So it's not like he's like going out there just looking Trey Lance atrocious, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, though, when he's playing against NFL starters and not backups in a preseason game. I think the game will move a little bit faster, and those wide receivers that are very subpar, I think, that's going to show up a little bit more in a real game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. The final question on here is has the Miami atmosphere finally gotten to Mike McDaniel? I don't know if you guys that are listening have seen this image of him at his press conference looking like I don't know, what is he looking like? He's looking like he's looking like a drug slumlord. But anyway, Mike McDaniel went from nerd to drug lord. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Mike McDaniel?
I put that on the show sheet for fun. I saw that picture the other day, and we had to talk about it, right? Because I mean, the evolution of Mike McDaniel. He's always been a fun character to watch, but his nerdy look that he had when he got the job year one to that picture is quite a change.
Yeah, for sure. And but I will say, I would be glad to have him as my team's NFL head coach. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. So let's move past the news here, and we're going to get into a little segment where each of us is going to share one AFC team that we want to keep an eye on, that we're interested in seeing how all this plays out for fantasy purposes. And Jackson, I'll start with you. Who is your one team that you're trying to keep an eye on here?
I'm not going to lie. I was looking at the AFC teams. I was trying not to pick one of the big name teams, but this one felt kind of like a layup, right? So I felt kind of weird taking it. But the Houston Texans, I mean, you look at their turnaround. I don't think I've ever seen a team do a 1-year turnaround like I've seen the Houston Texans do. I mean, they've got a top 5 maybe quarterback in the NFL, arguably. They've got a great running back that is acquired in the offseason in Joe Mixon. Their wide receiver room looks really good. Their defense with Will Anderson, I mean, they've got a stout defense. I mean, the way this team turned it around, and you know, if you're picking a team outside of like the perennial top 3 teams in the AFC to compete this year, I think you've got to mention the Houston Texans. Just from surely the GM office, the head coaching, the players. I mean, they're one of the more complete teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think they are a dark horse contender. I think from a fantasy perspective, the thing that I'm most interested to keep an eye on there is just how that wide receiver room shakes out. I mean, you know, Nico Collins was a stud last year, seemingly out of nowhere. You know, he was not usable for fantasy at all until all of a sudden CJ Stroud comes in there and he finished, I believe he was the top 12 fantasy wide receiver last year. Tank Dell was the wide receiver 13 in PPR when he went down with that injury. And then, of course, they add Stephon Diggs. And so how high a volume passing attack is this going to be? Is it going to be enough to sustain all 3 of them? I mean, how often are they running? I don't know if you saw this, guys. They were near the bottom in terms of like percentage of 3 wide receiver sets in the preseason. With Stroud on the field, it was like 57% they were running 3 wide receiver sets, which is not great when you've got those 3 wide receivers. Like I don't understand that, but that's going to be really interesting. When they get to the real games, are they going to run more 3 wide receiver sets? Are we going to see those guys all on the field a ton? When it is 2 wide receiver sets, which one's going to come off? In the preseason, it was Tank Dell. Does that make Tank Dell a buy in Dynasty because you're thinking long term and you're thinking Diggs is on the wrong side of 30 and we still really love Tank Dell's talent. So yeah, I think that's the thing I'm keeping an eye on, and everybody should be keeping an eye on.
I think realistically, maybe that does change. I'd have to imagine. I look at quarterbacks like, I hate to say it, but Dak Prescott, who has been able to support multiple wide receivers. I look at offenses like that. I mean, I have to imagine. Obviously, C.J. Stroud has the talent, and I have to think that team's going to be able to support 3 wide receivers. Now, which one is going to get the short end of the stick? That's a fair question because I think it truthfully might be Tank Dell, right?
Yeah, and I like Tank Dell so much that it's hard for me to say that. But just looking at the preseason usage, when they were all 3 on the field, Diggs was in the slot getting the most favorable matchup. And when there were only 2 wide receivers, it was Tank Dell going to the bench. So, that's not great for his fantasy outlook for 2024 if that's how they're going to use him in the regular season, especially if they're only running 3 wide receiver sets 57% of the time. So,
I suspect that last point,
go ahead.
They're just not going to show their hand in the preseason. They know, they got this ace up the sleeve, and defense coordinator is probably going to be up at night. How are they going to deploy these 3 wide receivers? So I suspect that's a lot of just not wanting to show their hand in the preseason.
Yeah, and I hope that that's the case. I think my many Tank Dell shares hope that that's the case. But yeah, I think they're all so talented, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out. But my advice, I guess, would be don't just look at the box score and say, okay, who scored the most fantasy points? Yeah. Really dig into the snap percentage and the alignment and the usage and those types of things. Because I think when we see that week 1, that might give you the best indicator of which one is the one to have on your fantasy team by the end of the year. So let's go to you, Rupert. What's an AFC team that you're keeping an eye on this year?
Might sound like almost like a homer answer since I'm living in Tennessee now, but I'll be watching the Titans real closely. Really interested to see the shift from going from a defensive-minded head coach to an offensive-minded head coach and seeing how he would be able to work with Will Levis. Obviously, we weren't the biggest Will Levis fans coming out of college, but for fantasy purposes, I would have loved to see him succeed, have another good quarterback in the league, supporting more wide receivers and tight ends. I really like the moves that they made this offseason, and I'm really interested to see how it plays out, particularly with that backfield. Tajay Spears was a big buy for me at the end of last year and into the offseason, and then kind of got cannibalized there with them signing Pollard, but I'm really interested to see how the split with the backfield plays out.
For sure. Jackson, you got any thoughts on the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great team to watch. I mean, I know none of us, as Rupert, as you said, we're huge Will Levis fans, right? But I mean, he has looked good, and we've got to at least recognize. It's easy to be like, oh, I was right about this guy. It's harder to say that I was maybe wrong about this guy, and I think that at least me personally, I might have been wrong about Will Levis. It's still time will tell, but he's looked real good. In the offseason, that offense, I'm excited to see what they do, with Calvin Ridley in that offense. I think he's an interesting piece to add to an offense that might be more pass happy now instead of the run happy, just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry that they've done for the last however many years. So, I mean, it should be a fun offense to watch. I think that's a good call out.
Yeah, I don't know if fun is the word that I would use with Will Levis at quarterback and a couple of aging wide receivers.
You can say a lot of things about Will Levis, but he's fun.
Interesting.
He's throwing bombs and maybe
it is interesting. I think from a fantasy perspective, for sure, it's interesting. I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is the year that the Titans do become fun, because when I think of the Tennessee Titans, I don't think fun. But
you just don't like the ground and pound. You like to see the ball aired out.
I'm going to throw out a team that typically has been synonymous with the word fun. And this year, maybe not so much. We'll see. I almost said San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. Man, going all the way back to the San Diego days. I mean, I'm an NC State grad, and so I loved Phillip Rivers, and so followed the Chargers with, LT and the whole crew. So they've always been a fun team to watch. And this year, there's just so much unknown. So I'm keeping my eye on this situation for so many reasons. One, Justin Herbert, who I'm going to talk more about in a minute, but he has fallen. His ADP is drastically lower than it was a year ago. Is it going to be as bad as everybody thinks that it is? I don't know. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The running back situation, completely wide open. I mean, you got people saying, "Oh, Kamani Vidal season, Kamani Vidal season." You got J.K. Dobbins, who I loved his talent, but the track record coming off of Achilles tears, not great. Guy just can't seem to stay healthy. Gus Edwards seems like maybe the safest bet to lead that backfield, but he's only ever been a committee guy and kind of a goal line back. He's never been a bell cow. So does he randomly have that breakout season here at like age 28? It's interesting. And I guess that's why people are high on Kamani Vidal. I speculate that it's not as much that people love Vidal as much as they just don't believe in Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And so they think, well, at some point, maybe they'll give the young guy a chance. But I mean, I don't know. It seems like just a week ago we were talking about, is Vidal even going to make the roster? And, late day 3 pick, I'm not sold. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out, because I feel like there's going to be somebody there that's really good for fantasy. We just don't know who it is yet. And you could actually, not a bad strategy, just go buy all 3 for super cheap. And then no matter what happens, you're covered, right? Yeah. And then the wide receiver room. Is Quentin Johnston even going to play? Is he even in the top 3 wide receivers on that team? Is Josh Palmer going to have a career year? Is Ladd McConkey going to come in and immediately as a rookie lead that team in targets and be the target hog? He's had a dead silent preseason training camp. There's been very little noise or hype about Ladd McConkey. That doesn't mean that I'm giving up on my guy just because of preseason hype or lack thereof. Ask Jamar Chase managers how preseason can indicate a guy's future career. But yeah, I think it's just going to be fascinating to see how it all shakes out, because the only thing coming back basically that's the same as Justin Herbert. You got a completely new coach, completely new offensive coordinator, totally different running back room, all new wide receivers, and I'm just fascinated to see how it all plays out, particularly for Justin Herbert, who, again, I'm going to talk more about in a minute. I'm excited to dig into that. So, Chargers, that's the team I'm keeping an eye on. What do you guys think?
I'm going to buy you for Christmas an I Hate Quentin Johnston t-shirt.
Stop. No. We don't hate the player. We just enjoy it when we're right.
We just never liked him as a prospect, and
I did not. I didn't like his tape. Right. I have nothing personal against Quentin Johnston as a person. I thought that he would be bad, and he has been. So,
no, I think the unknown is such the intriguing part about this team, right? The wide receivers are basically all new. Running backs are basically all new. So, who's going to step in and be that next Austin Eckler if that guy's even on the roster, right? Who's going to step in and be that next Keenan Allen, that just target hog for Justin Herbert? We like Ladd McConkey, but there's been a lack of noise, right? I so hope this is the first year that we just see a J.K. Dobbins breakout.
Oh man, I want that so bad.
I have been rooting for him since he was an Ohio State running back, and he has had such a bad string of bad luck. It's one of those like you laugh or you cry type of situations, right? Because he had all the talent, but it's like he never could stay healthy. So is this the year we finally see it? There's just so much unknown with this team. Like you said, it could be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I really like what you pointed out, Coop, with just grab up all those running backs, because none of them are expensive, and just see how it plays out. Like, they've built a bully of offensive line. Jim Harbaugh's going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball. So I think it's a really good strategy to go after. I know a couple weeks where I have like Vidal and Gus Edwards, but I don't have all 3. I don't think in any league. So it's a good point to make me want to go scoop up that last share of that backfield.
For sure. Yeah, so let's move into our next section. Before we do, I want to take a break and just hit our Discord. We've mentioned it a couple times already on this show. It's completely free. You can find the link in the show notes to join. It's a great community. We've got over 100 guys in there at this point, just talking Dynasty. People run their trades through the chat and see what everybody else thinks of trade offers. We react to news as it happens. We, people are talking dynasty strategies and all kinds of stuff, sometimes just personal stuff. And it's a really great community. So we'd love to have you join. The reason we started that was really simply like no ulterior motive. We just wanted to get to know our listeners, and it's been really fun to do that. So if you're listening to the show and you're not in there yet, hop on in and join us. And then the last thing I want to shout out for you guys is the dynastynerds.com website. If you become a Nerd Herd member, you get access to so many different things. There's a league analyzer tool that really, really helps if you're in a lot of leagues to figure out where you stand. Am I a contender? Am I rebuilding? At a glance, you can see which positions you need more help at. There's so many, and they're always adding new things to it. They're always innovating, always adding new tools. The film room is where we did all of our rookie prospect analysis. It's so much bang for your buck. And if you go and you use promo code COOP, COOP, you can get 15% off your Dynasty Nerds subscription. And I would highly recommend you guys doing that. So with all that being said, let's jump into kind of the rest of our show here and AFC players we like at ADP. I'm just going to kick it off because I've teased it enough. Justin Herbert is my player that I like at ADP in the AFC. He's QB 11 and the 20th overall player going in Superflex startup drafts. This a guy that was a top 5 startup draft player a year ago, and he's so talented. The last time he didn't finish top 10 in fantasy at his position, he wasn't in the league. I mean, he has every single year, rookie year, he came in, even missing the first couple weeks of the season with the Tyrod Taylor thing before he got hurt, and finished as QB9. He's such a high upside player. He's so talented. He's still young. I mean, the last time he wasn't a top 10 quarterback, some of the names that were in the top 10 that year, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, like the league has changed. And Justin Herbert has been dominating for a long time now. It feels like, even though it still feels like he just got in the league, but he's been very good. And the thing to me is, all right, so Greg Roman is there, and everybody assumes, okay, well, they're just going to run, and Jim Harbaugh's there, so they're just going to run. Well, a couple things. One, have either of those guys ever had a quarterback the caliber of Justin Herbert? No.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. The last time we saw Jim Harbaugh, he's running a Colin Kaepernick offense. And even Greg Roman, he's running a Lamar Jackson offense. So both of those, like you're building the offense around the player that you have. So if you're going to build this offense around the player that you have in Justin Herbert, that dude's a baller. He can air it out. Also, by the way, he's super mobile. Like, he's got wheels, and he's never been used that way before. And both of these guys have a history of letting their quarterbacks run. And if that part of his game gets unlocked, he's going to break fantasy. Like, nobody's talking about that possibility that with these two coaches in there, they could actually have design runs for Justin Herbert. Like, come on, man. And then the running back room, we just talked about how ugly it is. Are you really going to be able to run the rock 30, 40 times a game when your running back room is Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Kamani Vidal? I don't think so. So I think this is being overblown. I cannot believe that you can get him in the second half of the second round in a startup draft that's super flex. Like, that just blows my mind. He's a screaming value. I've been buying him all off season. Justin Herbert is the player that I don't just like, I love him at ADP for the AFC. So that's my little soapbox. What do you guys think? Are you with me with the Justin Herbert love?
You had to go and hurt my heart by throwing in Carson Wentz there, man. That one stunk a little bit. No, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. You look at his ADP, and he is criminally undervalued. There is no way a guy of his caliber should be going in the back half of the second round in Superflex drafts. I mean, somebody that's got his arm talent. I mean, we're all, like you said, so worried about, they're just going to run the ball. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, when you've got a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you air the ball out. And that's what I think is going to happen. And you're looking at a guy that they could easily finish as a top 5 quarterback, if not even higher, right? And you can get him in the back half of the second round. That is stealing, and it shouldn't be happening.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is way overblown. This coaching staff wanting to run. Like, they're going to run the ball to set up big play action, deep passes to Wad McConkey and Josh Palmer down the field. I'm not worried about him at all. And, I'm going to be buying this dip because people are also like worried about his weapons. I'm like, it's not going to be that long. They're not depleted from draft picks. So I feel like they're just going to make that better over the years. So he's so young still. So he's a guy I'm going to target to, maybe like downgrade a little bit from a top tier quarterback, or if I have, 2 mediocre quarterbacks, maybe try and package and trade up to get them.
I mean, we talked about it on the show last week, right? I would 100% trade like a Jalen Hurts, who's QB3, top 3 pick in your startup drafts for Justin Herbert plus. I'm doing that trade all day and twice on Sunday.
Yep, for sure. Totally agree with that. So, all right, we're all in agreement on Justin Herbert. No drama there. Let's go to our next one. Matt Jackson, who is your wide receiver that you like at ADP? Oh, I guess I spoiled it. It's a wide receiver. Who's your player that you like at ADP?
Well, we kind of talked about it. We kind of talked about him in the show earlier, so I feel like it's already been spoiled a little bit. But give me Nico Collins. I mean, we talked about it earlier. He's a guy that no one really wanted on a dynasty roster. He was doing nothing, and then enter C.J. Stroud, right? And C.J. Stroud unlocks that offense, and Nico Collins finishes as the wide receiver 9 last year. Currently, he's getting drafted at the wide receiver 16 and 45th overall. For me, somebody that's I'm almost guaranteeing is gonna finish as a top 12 wide receiver on an offense that I already know is going to air the ball out and throw the ball downfield. I think he's seeing a dip because Stephon Diggs is on that team now, and it's like, okay, Stephon Diggs is going to be the new wide receiver to own on that team. I still think Nico Collins is a screaming value where he's at, somebody that can finish as a top 12 receiver, and you're getting him at 45th overall. That's like you're getting him in the 4th to 5th round. I mean, for me, I really, really like his value as somebody that's tied to C.J. Stroud for a good little bit.
Rupert, what do you think, man?
Yeah, agreed. He's taking a dip because Diggs is there, but Diggs isn't going to be there forever. I think Nico's going to be tied to Stroud for a long, long time. Buy the dip, enjoy the payoff down the road.
Yeah, I guess I'll be a little bit more lukewarm on his price tag. I don't think that he's like a sell at his price, but I wouldn't describe him personally as a screaming buy. I think while he did just break out last year and we think of him as this really young player, he's the same age as like Michael Pittman, right? So he's 25. He's going to be 26 by the end of the year. That's not old by any means, but another year or two and people are going to start talking about him like he's old. It's not like he's this rookie second year, whatever. So I do think if it takes a couple years for that production to really be there, like I don't think I can guarantee that he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver this year. There's just too much unknown with how all that's going to shake out and how that target share is going to be split up between those 3 wide receivers, and they're all super talented, but do they cannibalize each other to an extent? And so for me, like if he is in that like mid to low wide receiver 2, like that's a very usable fantasy player. But I wouldn't say that would be a steal at his ADP. And then if it takes 2 years before Diggs kind of is out of the way and he's able to produce like that again, well, now he's 28, 29. So
I guess where I'm coming from is I would argue that it doesn't take 2 years, right? I mean, C.J. Stroud and that offense can more than easily, in my mind, support 2 1,000 plus yard receivers. I don't think that's outside the question. So I still think you're looking at Nico Collins at possibly an 1,100 yard receiver with a good amount of touchdowns. And that's hitting wide receiver one numbers. So in my mind, for somebody that you can get, you're looking at drafting him at wide receiver 16, a back half of a wide receiver 2. I mean, that seems like an easy pick to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big, we're film guys. We're not numbers, projections. I don't know how many yards CJ Stroud would have to throw for all these guys to hit the way that we hope that they'll hit. Because it's not like, even if Tank Dell is not as good as we want him to be for fantasy, he's still probably going to rack up at least 700 yards himself, right? And Diggs, probably at least 700 yards. And it's not like they're not going to throw to the tight end or not going to throw to the running back at all. So it's just, they're all so talented. It's just a lot of mouths to feed. And I don't know that I feel super confident in how it's going to shake out. I like Nico as a player, and I like CJ Stroud, and I like the offense. There's just a little bit more unknown for me in that situation. But let's go to Rupert. Joe Mixon is your guy. I spoiled it again. I'm reading the sheet here. Tell us why you love Joe Mixon. We're staying with the Texans. Tell us why you love Joe Mixon.
I will preface this by saying I would not do this if I was looking to punt, the first year and go really young. This is like a win now contending team kind of build. But his value at RB18, 79th overall is crazy to me. I feel like he's pretty much locked for a top 10 year this year with the lack of competition, being on a great offense with a really solid offensive line. And I just feel like he's easily going to be – he has a chance to be top 7, top 5 running back this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not even talking about his receiving upside too, right? I mean, he's somebody that could go out there and catch the ball too. So he doesn't just have to do it from a running back perspective either. I mean, he can go out there and be a PPR back, and you're not really looking. I mean, yes, they've got Dameon Pierce on the roster. He's not somebody that really intrigues me, right? So, yeah, he doesn't really have much competition. I don't know why he can't go out there and do everything that we think he's going to do. So yeah, that's a great call.
Yeah, he should be pretty productive for fantasy for at least another couple of years. So, yeah, good contender buy for sure. All right, so last thing we're going to do here, and this will just be kind of a fun little segment to end the show. We're going to give AFC Super Bowl predictions, and we're not going to say the NFC side until next week, so let's not spoil the NFC side of things. But Jackson, let's start with you. Who's your prediction to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC?
I just want to preface this with I make it a habit not to bet against Patrick Mahomes. But a three-peat is so hard, right? I mean, you don't really see teams three-peating. They've got some question marks at wide receiver, but they had it last year. But I still think that causes some concern this year. If I'm taking a team outside of the Chiefs, because the Chiefs is just boring and that's not really fun to me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double down on what I did last year, and I'm going to say the Bengals. The Bengals have improved in the trenches this offseason on both sides of the ball, right? Joe Burrow is healthy now. He's rocking an Eminem haircut, so that's got to mean something, right? So I'm doubling down on the only team that has shown that they could go out there and really compete with the Chiefs and even beat them a time or two. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl again, and we're going to try this again for the second year in a row.
All right, Rupert.
I want to go with the Packers. Jordan Love taking that next step, beating the Chiefs. Again, just to be contrarian there, but the Chiefs lost a stud cornerback, so they don't got 2 lockdown corners anymore. So I think that can really hurt them this year. And the Packers have a multitude of weapons that they can take advantage of matchups. So
hey Rupert,
with a little bit. Rupert didn't listen to the instructions.
Do you know that the Packers are in the NFC?
Oh, I thought we were saying who. I'm sorry. I thought we were saying who is going to win the Super Bowl.
No, we're gonna make our NFC predictions next week. This is who you think's gonna make it out of the AFC.
To make it. Okay. Spoiler alert.
Rupert's gonna pick the Packers next week.
Oh, that's funny.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, next week, how about next week you can give your AFC prediction? How about that? We'll
I already said
do
it.
the
The
little.
Chiefs.
Spoiler
They take
alert
advantage
again.
of
All
Chiefs
right.
losing their cornerback.
All right, the Chiefs. Okay. Well, I'll finish this off here. I'm going to go with the Ravens as a dark horse, just to mix it up, like you said, from the chalk picks of Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. Look, they've had bad luck with injuries to Lamar, to Mark Andrews, to literally every running back they've ever had. It seems like the last few years, but I think they're a pretty complete team on both sides of the ball. I like Zay Flowers to take a step forward this year as a go-to guy in that offense. They get Mark Andrews back. They add Derrick Henry, which I think is huge considering their style of football. And so, I mean, how do you defend a read option between Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the cold at the end of the season when everybody's tired of tackling people? Like, I think that's a great stylistic fit. So, yeah, give me the Ravens as a dark horse.
I like it.
But yeah, that's our AFC Super Bowl predictions and one bonus NFC prediction for you, courtesy of Matt Rupert. So we're gonna wrap up the show here, fellas. Tell them where they can find you on social media. We'll start with you, Rupert.
Yeah, give me a follow at Matthew Rupert FF on Twitter.
Jackson.
Yeah, give me a follow. You can look me up on Twitter or X at DevyMatt.
You can find me at CouchScouts FF on Twitter, and you can find us at CouchScouts on YouTube. So if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, whatever, and you want to come check out the YouTube page, we'd love to have you subscribe there. And vice versa. If you're on YouTube, go drop us, leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. All the engagement, we just appreciate it. It helps people find the show. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.